Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Safe Room Podcast, a podcast where God is dead and the girls are gay. My name is Rose, and I'm here with Grace.
Hi. Hello. You can't just spring that on me. It's unfair. Hello. Yes, I'm Grace. We played Signalis this month.
We played Signalis. Ah,
Um, yeah, which was pretty cool. I was actually like, I
pretty
didn't have
classic.
anything against it. It's pretty, yeah, pretty classic. It's pretty cool, Fuck, I kind of watched that whole video again. It's so good.
You see the rusted floors, and you're like, it's cool to see that.
It's cool to see that. It's cool to see that. German text flashes on the screen, and I'm like,
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily going in being like, oh, I'm gonna have a negative or positive opinion.
Yeah.
But I was a little like, I don't know, people talk a lot about this video game, and but yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
I think I was more positive on it in the beginning, and then kind
mm,
kind
that's
of
kind of
felt
yeah.
tired of it by the end.
I think
Um,
that's fair. I do think for me, when the game really clicked, was kind of the third area.
yeah,
I
sure.
think that is like super cool design, and the game does kind of like reset after the first credits, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
in a way that does like, I mean, I think it's still cool, like it's still well done, and it does some interesting things, but
yeah,
yeah, um, because yeah, I mean, part of it is that this is a game that does all the things. I mean, we talked a lot in our Silent Hill 3 episode about like why don't games do this, and Signalis is a game that does that. Like it is just like, yeah, we understand basically what is good about Silent Hill, and along with other things, like, to be clear, this is not an entirely unoriginal project, but we are going to replicate those things to the best of our ability. I think largely it's pretty successful at doing that.
hmm
Yeah.
So,
Do you have any opening thoughts, or should we summarize this dream game? Uh,
uh, no, no. Other than, like, I enjoyed it for what it was. Um, I thought it had some frustrating setbacks that we'll talk about, but
mm-hmm,
overall, I
mm-hmm.
enjoyed my time with it. I like I definitely, like I said, I felt tired of it by the end, but I did. The ending kind of brought me around a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah,
in
and
a
we'll
way
talk
that,
about, like, I'm curious what ending you got, um,
yeah,
as
but
well, and stuff. But
yeah, overall enjoyed it. Kind of a game that makes me want to replay it just to dig in there and look at all
yeah,
the details and see what I
mm-hmm.
missed the first time
Yeah, I
around.
think you
So
could definitely like construct things in a way that the game
yeah,
like somewhat evades, but also it's easy to theory craft
hmm
um, with it.
but yeah.
Yeah.
What happens in this game that's definitely real?
Yeah, everything definitely happens in normal way and represents a sort of objective reality that you can parse and make good on, you know? Um so yeah, this is a game you play as Elster,
hmm
who is a replica, which is kind of like well, I guess to set it up, this is like far future. You're in some kind of um, ambiguously totalitarian coded future, um, where there are human beings, which are gestalts, which is German for form, by the way. And I mean, well, it's a little more complicated than that, but that is one of the possible translations. And then there are replicas, which are sort of like biological robots, that are in some way like mass produced, right? Um, and so you are going to this facility on an unknown planet where there's like a like kind of, it's, I don't know, it's a school. There's also a mine. In kind of the Silent Hill-y way, it's just all these like places of discipline, right? In the Foucauldian sense, or it's like places where people are molded into specific kind of people, and that's also like really literalized in this kind of, all these workers are like robotic in some way and like mass produced, right? Um, and you are searching for your Gestalt partner because usually, or often, on like a spaceship or certain situations, you will be like assigned a human being, and that's Ariani. I assume is how you pronounce that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically, you go and things are messed up. There's a bunch of replica units that have become, zombies or possessed by something. There's flesh growing out of the walls, and you go deeper and deeper and kind of discover that this is maybe, hell or a dream or, however I want to interpret it, and that you've like taken this journey repeated times over and over again, right? Continually trying to find this person and struggling to do so. Um, and that's basically what the game is. Like, there is kind of like itty bitty plot stuff. There's other characters. There's some construction of like, what was this facility and like what happened and how did it fall apart, in kind of the survival horror way. But in terms of like plot events, there's not that much that occurs. Um,
Yeah, it's very my thing coming at this game. I with all the fan art, I originally thought it was going to be more character focused. It's not. It's just
yeah, well, I
not that
do think
game.
there is a little bit of because some of the endings are determined by like how much you talk to NPCs, and
Hmm.
I thought I was like, well, I exhausted like all the dialogue with them, but it's like either you have to go back and like check in on them a lot, or because I did not get the, I
What
was
I
not talking with the NPCs that much apparently. Um,
well, what I thought was it was dependent on playstyle. Like one ending was like a reserved playstyle, and
yes,
then the other was
that
like
that's
aggressive.
correct. That's just
Uh-huh.
one of the factors is
Okay.
discussion with NPCs. Yeah, that's like one of the
Yeah.
numbers that ticks up or whatever.
Which is a
Yeah.
very Silent Hill 2 thing to do is to
Yes.
map out endings by playstyle, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat. I think it's a little bit less Silent Hill 2 in the way that Silent Hill 2 kind of assigns like you seeing specific things or like even experiencing specific story beats in a certain
Sure,
sense,
yeah.
like as connected to the ending that you will get. Whereas this is almost pure like how you play and how you interact and interface with the game.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that makes like what ending you get feel really intuitive in a really interesting way, and it also makes it feel less like I'm supposed to go back and replay it. It's a little bit
Hmm.
more like how you play the game shapes what the ending the game presents to you and how you interact with it. I think that's a really interesting thing. It's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not. These are like nitpicky kind of distinctions from Silent Hill 2. It's the same kind
Yeah.
of system, but I think it's interesting to think about that.
But yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be more character focused, and instead it's very much like very kind of like a grand tragedy sort of
Mm-hmm.
deal, where it's like you don't get that many specifics about the characters, but you get kind of the archetype of this like couple that has been kind of driven apart by circumstance, and just the environment around them. And it's kind of just about chasing that intimacy again, or finding a path forward from there, and it's all sad. It's
Yes.
all endings, all ways forward are sad.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's more kind of it felt like more of a tone piece than anything else for me. At some
Yeah.
point, I just kind of let the lore wash over me. My
Yeah.
first playthrough.
Well, I
Um,
think that's definitely like kind of the intended way to play. Like you certainly can Dark Souls it, you
oh,
know.
my recommendations are ruined by Signalis lore videos now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like that is yes, that is like absolutely a factor. And I think something the game like actively encourages, but it's also like and I think that's actually part of what makes it work, particularly since like this is a story that is so much about like video gamey thematic concerns like recurrence, right?
Yeah,
And like identity in the kind of like who are you, were you made, like in this kind of BioShocky way.
sure.
Um and I say that sounds really derisive, but I think the thing that makes it work like so much better than other games that kind of have those same considerations is that the heart of the thing is so personal, and it's just about this like it's like two people who really loved each other who can't
Hmm.
see each other, right? And that's
Yeah.
like the whole that is like the whole emotional engine of all that stuff. And it feels like it the kind of stuff about recurrence, the stuff about like your body changing or being interchangeable with other people, um like that fuels like a lot of considerations about like aging and about relationships. And it feels like, even though yeah, I agree there's so much of it that's like a tone piece, it's also very like it's very intimate, right, in a certain sense. And I think that that gives it kind of like a weight and sort of an emotionality to it that
Hmm.
like Dead Space doesn't fucking have. Like I like Dead Space
Right.
fine, but like come on, you know.
Uh,
Right. um
yeah, I think it, and I also think it gives you just enough. Like one of the first things you do in this game is pick up The King in Yellow, which is an actual book
yes,
that you
yeah.
can read.
Yes, yeah.
Uh,
One of
and
these,
the
I mean, I
game,
think it's oh go ahead, keep going, sorry.
I just, in terms of like it being a puzzle box kind of thing, it doesn't feel like it's hitting me over the head with it. It feels like it is like encouraging me to go read other things, right? And
Yeah.
not just like hyper focused on this one story that it's pulling. It's more it's like showing your references after you've you've written a thing, right? And I appreciate that aspect of it. Not so much like picking apart things, though, like as a Twin Peaks fan, I am guilty of doing. But
Yeah.
just the fact that like the game is also like, hey, go, you can go read this book if you want to see other stuff
Right.
like
I think
this.
yeah, it's such a low bar in some ways, but every time a game feels really engaged with stuff that's not games, it's so
Hmm.
refreshing because it happens so infrequently. And especially since
Yeah,
like obviously like there's a lot of Lovecraft. There's, as is a there's some Event Horizon and Alien here. It's not like there's a lot of like normal video game influences, right, that are like around. But like I'd heard
there's
of the King of Yellow before this. There's like a bunch of
yeah,
symbolist art. There's all this classical
Sw-
music that is really
Swan
interestingly
Lake, yeah.
deployed.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like it is engaging with those influences in a way. And I think that also includes the gaming stuff. Like I was surprised how novel this felt, even though we have just played like 8 games that are like this, and we're gonna
Hmm.
keep doing it. But I think Signalis has like a spot in that firmament that feels earned. It doesn't feel like it's just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, here's one of these, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
it makes me less likely to roll my eyes when they rip off shots from Evangelion, you know?
yes, yeah. Well, it feels like a little bit more, it feels like all these echoes are like really conscious, and especially
Yes.
since the game is about like replication, quite literally, like people
Yeah.
who are copies of copies who have like conflicting multiple memories. Like there's that great
Mm.
journal you find from Aldler, who's
Yeah.
kind of the antagonist, sort of,
Yeah.
the like only male character in the game. Who, and he has that journal where he's written multiple things, all for the same date, and
It's
then like
so
notices it,
good.
and it's like, what
Yes.
is like that, that stuff is really really cool.
Yeah.
And I think, is yeah, I mean, I just think it just doesn't like there's a very conscious sort of engagement with its influences and wears its stuff on its sleeve. And I've definitely seen people, and I don't think it's like wrong necessarily to be kind of turned off by that. I do kind
Hmm.
of wish, like, I was like, maybe you could have gone for something other than the red TV thing, or like you could have, maybe you could not do the exact same content warning or whatever, you know. But like those, that ultimately in the face of what the game is doing feels kind of nitpicky. It doesn't really feel like it's like, oh, like it's so beholden to Silent Hill it can't get out from under the shadow. It's like, no, that's not true, you know.
I think well, so much of this game it feels like it it pulls from things. It assumes that its audience has a certain amount of familiarity with what it's pulling from,
Yeah.
and doesn't try to. It doesn't have like they know you've seen Silent Hill. They know you've watched anime. They know, like,
Mhm.
they are
Mhm.
not trying to do anything more than that. They are trying to use those references or those touch points as a way to tell its own story.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought they straddled that line pretty well.
Yeah, I also think that's this is kind of getting into a little bit of a different tack. Um, but I thought it was really cool and refreshing. Um, and I'm not like the most qualified person to speak on this, but like there's a lot, there's a lot of untranslated Chinese in this game and a lot of untranslated
Mm,
German. Um, and that's not just like hashtag cyberpunk aesthetics.
yeah,
That like that stuff is communicating things about the world, right? And
yeah,
there's a lot of, it's not like Firefly where it's like, oh yeah, there's this vague idea that there's Chinese people out there somewhere and they're all
hmm
kind of bad maybe, you know.
yeah,
Right? It's like, oh yeah, there's just like people speak Chinese, have, this stuff, and that's just like part of the fabric of this universe, right? It does
hmm
not feel like cheap. And I think like every reference or sort of like touchdown that it makes feels like it's being deployed in a similar way where it does not feel they're being like, oh well, there's those Japanese characters in Blade Runner, what if we did that,
hmm
because that's cool or whatever.
yeah,
It's just not, it's more considered than that.
yeah,
Um yeah. Oh, and I guess also kind of connected to that, there's something interesting about, because this is not really a fixed camera angle game. um
right.
it's top down. It's kind of Metal Gear Solid-y, actually,
Hmm
in terms of like there's also like light stealth stuff where it's like you can walk through a room and evade enemies if you're, walk carefully and stuff like that. Um uh I think that's neat, you know.
hmm
And I feel like that kind of the way it, because this is the kind of choice that I would be like, no, you have to have fixed camera angles. Like that's so important. Like why aren't you doing this thing, But I think it's like because there's sort of this sterility to it, that there's a bit of distance
hmm
because you're seeing it from above, and like so much of the game is about interfacing with the map and like trying to figure out, okay, well I need to get this item which is back in the inventory, which is over here, and going through it means going through like XYZ room which has these enemies in it, and I have this ammo with me. There's sort of just like calculating, kind of, there's something very strategic about it, and it gives
yeah,
it such an interesting character, I think, that's really distinct from kind of the like, there's something gut punchy and like emotional about Silent Hill that this kind of takes a step back from,
uh-huh.
in a way that I think is really expressive. It's very nice.
Mhm. I was very struck by how much this game does not want you to look at a walkthrough. Because everything
Yeah.
is like very plainly spelled out in the map and marks
Mm-hmm.
everything for you. The
Yeah.
item descriptions will be like, "Hey, this looks like it could be used here."
Yeah.
In a
Right.
way that I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
I definitely got. There were a couple puzzles or like a couple moments where it's like I feel like I've opened every door and I don't, and it was like, oh, I forgot about this note in this thing
Hmm
that tells me the key code for this door or whatever, So I
Yeah.
did look up a walkthrough a couple times. The thing is also I think the puzzles are really interesting because they're not. Um, some of them are really intuitive, but some of them are like genuinely kind of fussy in a way that I thought was like cool, and I did feel smart completing them.
hmm
Which was nice. I don't always feel smart playing these games. I just feel like, okay, I did the thing.
Yeah.
I put the tarot card in the right place and we're good to go. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Which one stood out to you?
I'm trying to remember. There was one where you had to like translate. There were like numbers
Yeah.
associated with a keypad, and you had to like go through like a couple layers of translation to figure out which things on the keypad to press that
Yep.
corresponded to the right number. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was really clever, and
Yeah.
feels like the kind of cipher that like someone working in an office would actually make. You know, there's
Yeah.
enough. There's enough of just like, oh, there's like, you know, there's the sticky note on the computer that says the password, right? There's stuff like that, which is also, of course, true to life, you know. But there's also
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's some fucking nerd here who's got some ideas about company security, and you have to like, you know. But it's not that ornate, you know. I think that's also gives it a little bit of character. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of the
I
puzzles, like, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I really like the anytime you had to use the radio for any puzzle or like
Oh yeah,
enemy stuff. That I really like that stuff, especially since it's very thematically important to the game as well. I
yeah,
liked incorporating that and using it for puzzles and certain enemies and stuff.
yeah. It's really cool when you there's that one puzzle where you have to like you have to like put the radio next to the microphone so it'll give you each code,
Yeah,
right? And just
yeah,
that like the way the game kind of expects you to intuitively understand that like, oh, microphone means sound and the radio emits sound, right? Like is so like human kinds of logic that video
hmm
games don't normally deploy, and that did throw me off. I was like, wait, I don't know what to do. Like, all right, that was one of the ones I had to look up, right?
hmm
Um, but I like that's just such a like weird like human little thing that I thought was really cool.
yeah,
And I also like the escalation of how the radio enemies are used, where it's like you have to tune into a specific signal that's changing all the time to identify which enemy you need to kill to
yeah,
like stop this kind of AOE effect.
hmm
And at first it's just like you walk into a room and there's like four guys, and you just like turn the radio to the right channel and you're good to go. But then eventually it's like, okay, well, I've got this, but there's more guys around, and also there's enemies that are not attached to this guy that are attacking me. And so like that, you know, that's simple like panic. And especially if you walked into a room and you're like, oh, I was hoping there was a save point up ahead, and now I'm fucked
hmm
because you know I don't have enough ammo or whatever. Um,
hmm
yeah.
yeah,
It's just really clever. Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I could have done with okay. I don't. This isn't an actual criticism. This is
Yeah.
game club grumping, but
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's got to happen, you know.
that last puzzle with the cards
Mm.
where the you have to like get each card to know which the order to put the moons in,
Yes. Yeah.
but you can't intuitively solve that puzzle because you need the ring, and you only get the ring by getting all of the cards, because all of the cards decompose the lab, and you need to decompose the lab to get the ring to appear.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just wish you could just intuitively solve the puzzle, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
Um, that's
Um.
that's my one nitpick about the end of the game, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I do kind of like I like the way some of the puzzles have sort of a mystic quality, that there's like this weird cause and effect that you place all these tarot cards on a table and that means that something rots somewhere else in the building,
Yeah,
right? You know, that there's sort of like a weird kind of I mean, again, like a dream logic to it. I think that stuff is cool.
yeah. All those first person segments where you like get an item and then the item is in your inventory now.
Yes. I was like, damn, like Nanashi no Game showing up here. They even have the like sequence on the train and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if they played that, but I was like that was also the thing, is the array of influences feels diverse enough that it's like it's totally possible that they played the Nameless game and were like thinking about that, you know.
hmm
Um did that get an EU release? I think it might have.
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe it didn't, because there's not like an English translation.
Yeah.
That's not a fan translation. So, anyway, um,
But
yeah,
yeah, I love the presentation of this game. Just going from the top
hmm
down to first person to like all of the quick cuts and the cutscenes and stuff.
yeah.
Very good. Liked
No,
it a
it's really
lot.
cool. Yeah, it's nice to just see a game have a lot of tools and
hmm
using them in interesting ways. You know, that it's kind of not afraid to um, play with different modes of interaction. you
Hmm.
know. Um, I feel like I have another thought there, but um,
What did you think
um,
of the actual shooting and gameplay stuff?
the shooting is a little fiddly in a way that
Hmm.
I think mostly works. It was sometimes like sometimes I felt like I lifted my gun and it immediately snapped, and sometimes like, oh, I do kind of have to aim, and I don't know like when I'm supposed to do which thing.
Yeah.
And that definitely got a little tricky in like the final boss fight, where the game does actively expect you to like dodge and aim in a way that it doesn't as much earlier.
Yep.
Um, but that's like pretty, that's pretty minor stuff. Um, I like the way the guns sound. I like that. I mean, you can change the setting,
Yeah,
but I
they are
like,
so
yeah,
poppy. Yeah, it's
yes,
nice.
yeah. There's sort of a like, God, yeah. It's so jarring every time you shoot, especially since like enemies don't have guns.
Hmm.
Um, God, it's really cool when I forget her name, but when you do that one boss battle and she's like loading the rifle the whole time and pointing it at the enemy
Yep.
you're fighting,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's sick as
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah, it's so
Um,
good.
Alina, yeah, okay, who also who resembles this woman, resembles Ariane that Elster is looking for, and da 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 da.
Let's talk
Um,
about that real quick. Did you
yeah,
notice that the picture in your inventory changes after the prologue?
no, I didn't. I also because I put it in the storage box and it just disappears, which is so fucked up. That's something that really scared. Because at first I was like maybe holding on to the photo because this is a very like Silent Hill thing, right? It's like if I keep the photo in my inventory, I will get like something different at the ending or whatever. And then I
Yeah.
was like, oh well, I have to put it away like at this point because and there's also parts in the game where you literally have to have each slot of your 6 inventory things filled,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So you couldn't do it, but um, but yeah, so I did not notice that it changes. Oh no, wait, I did actually. Sorry, I'm like remembering now. I did notice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because in the prologue it's Arion, and then when you exit the prologue it turns into a picture of Issa, um,
yeah,
who you come
um,
across later in the game. Which I still don't know. I haven't like dug into that stuff and what that means, but
yeah,
I did think it was notable, not something I noticed until I finished the game. That
right,
happened.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, I just think that like, I mean, I think that stuff is interesting. I think that like blurring of cells, okay, this is also something that kind of turned me off about the game from a distance, and that I don't think the game is actually like this. I thought it maybe had a bit of like locked tomb syndrome, which I haven't read. So maybe this is also an inaccurate description of locked tomb. But like the way people pitch those books is just like, oh yeah, there's just lesbians, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's fine. I like women, but I don't know if this is like I don't know because I mean I think I just feel kind of like I guess whatever I don't know I stories about queerness I think have to be thinking through like um have to be thinking through like oppression in some way or and that doesn't mean that that's I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Doesn't mean that you can't just have gay people in your story and everything's fine and normal and you don't have to be thinking about that, or that like trauma as such has to be a central element of it.
hmm.
Um, but I was just like, oh, I just don't want to play like a game that's like hashtag lesbians aesthetic and that like a bunch of queer people like just because it like has lesbians in it, as opposed to like
Yeah.
something. And I think the game is actually like interested in like embodiment and like
Hmm.
expression and this kind of
Yeah.
stuff that is like obviously really tied in. Like it does not it's not I don't know. It's not a game that's like incidentally like, oh, and there's gay people here. It's like, no, that's like part of what the game is about, like in a big way.
Yeah.
So I was like that was a nice surprise, you know.
It's kind of the furthest thing away from there's lesbians and everything's cool.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of.
Everything is bad.
You
I
want
think this sort of oh go ahead, sorry.
No, you finish your thought.
Well, I was just gonna say that I think because like the game, all of the game's principal characters basically, except Alder are women,
Hmm.
right? Um, but there's not sort of, I guess there's kind of the impression that there's like all these weird anime soldiers that they mass produce, and a lot of those people are women, but it's not
Hmm.
necessarily like it's not necessarily like, oh, this is like a good situation for women to be in,
Hmm.
and especially since like Alder is kind of the one who's like sort of in charge, right? And he has this very like, because he and then the other model Falca,
Yeah.
who's like one of the boss, who's like the final boss at the end of the game, have kind of like a weird symbiotic relationship that is like enforced. But, and that's like, it's easy to be like, that's heteronormativity or like whatever, right? Like, and it's maybe
Hmm.
it's not that cut and dry, but the game is clearly considering questions of like, when you are born into a certain role, how does that role like shape your psychology and how you
Hmm.
like, act and move in the world. And so I think it's just very like, it's just considering questions of gender and sexuality in ways that are
Hmm.
like subtextual and not necessarily like, it's not analog heavy, but it's like obviously working through some of that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, those two are definitely like a mirror to your own situation as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to talk about the endings? We're here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the endings.
So I got the memory ending,
I did
um,
too. So,
which is which is the one you get if you played like a traditional survival horror game, like more
yeah.
reserved about combat. Um, Basically, what happens is you approach the whole game. You're searching for Ariane, and she's on the spaceship that I forget the name of, the Penrose or something.
Penrose, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and you open her little containment thing, and she doesn't recognize you. She forgets about you. She says sorry, and you're like, "That's okay." And then you kind of just like die by her side.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the that's
Ugh.
kind of the end of the game, and
It's
it's
really
really
depressed.
good.
I was feeling very like, God, I can't. Because it's just like, it's just a thing where it's like you're just living the same awful day over and over again. And then even in this like final moment, you're just kind of still trapped in this. I mean, and there's not a way, there's not an ending where it's like, and you both get out together and everything's cool, So, but it's
Hmm.
just sad, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, I
yeah,
it was good. It was good ending to the game. I felt.
yeah,
The other one, I forgot the name of it.
yeah. I just pulled up a little guide. So there's the promise ending,
Yes,
um,
that's what it's called.
where where basically she does remember you. It's kind of similar,
Hmm.
except that it's like not as much time has passed, or sort of, I don't know. There's like, the way you do this is basically like trying to kill as many enemies as possible, um,
Hmm.
which is definitely like, because the game kind of encourages you not to kill enemies. I think because of it does the same. It does the Resident Evil remake thing where it's like you have to have a particular item in your inventory to destroy corpses or else they will rise again. Um,
Hmm.
and so it's like, I like never killed people unless it was like, okay, I either cannot interface with things in this room, or I have some thermite in my bag and I can kill this enemy in this key area and then I won't have to deal with it every time I go through here. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um I don't know if I have anything more to say about that. I'm trying to remember if there's any details I've forgotten. Um
Yeah. Basically, you play aggressively. You go up to Ariane and you kill her.
Yes, that's right. She asks you to, basically.
Yes,
Right,
that's the
yeah.
promise.
Yeah. Um
Um, and then in that you're like, I guess, breaking some sort of cycle,
yeah,
something.
potentially. Well, cuz you do find her, right? And this is also the thing, is the ship. The game's prologue is on this ship, right? And that becomes like a recurring image as you
Hmm.
start, and like at the first, cuz the game rolls credits once and then you play, there's sort of like a back half or like a back third that is like
Yeah.
you play through another section of the game and then you get like the ending, right?
Hmm.
Um, and at the end of that, you go down to the ship and can't find her. Although well, yeah, I want to finish talking about the endings, but I also want to talk about that scene
Hmm.
because there's some cool stuff there. um,
Uh, yeah,
but
we can
yeah.
talk about that when we talk about the secret ending as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, the other like normal ending is the leave ending where you are like super conservative with ammo and like
Mm-hmm.
heal like immediately after getting hit, and
Yeah.
you just don't go into the ship and you just kind of go into the desert and die.
Yes, you're. I mean, I think sort of the implication there, at least in conjunction with promise, is that like I couldn't do this thing that you asked me to do. Right? I don't
Yeah.
want to.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah. Um,
And then there's artifact.
yeah.
This one's so fucked. You have
Yeah.
to in the beginning of the game, there's a first person segment and you're in a room, and if you look around the room there's a fucking safe with three locks.
Yes.
And you have to use your radio to unlock uh like compartments in a room that like unlock a key, and then at the end of the game you have to unlock the safe, and then you place a
Mm.
flower. There's a cutscene where you place a flower onto like a monolith or something, and you see all these like dead bodies around this like multiple piece like structure,
Yeah.
and then it cuts to like a black and white scene of you dancing with Arion, and that's the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so fucked up. And oh, you also have to like input the numbers that are read over the beginning as well in the prologue.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
god, when that would when the like because there's that sound the da da da
yes,
and like the reading of the numbers, and then when you
yes,
get that and you like open the hummingbird cage like with that sound, I was like getting that was like so unnerving to me. I don't quite know why, but that
yeah,
was like legitimately like like. And again, I guess there's like recurrence, like the sound that you thought was just like mood setting is like actually this particular thing that like represents something, and that's
hmm,
like kind of freaky, right? There's something
yeah,
about like, I don't know, it's cool.
yeah. Especially when like it is also used to like for this outcome of like staying in this like one specific memory. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's it's pretty cool. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about the flashback scene.
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking specifically about kind of the first ending when you like go through the Evangelion desert
Yeah.
and you're trying to open the ship and your arm rips off because you can't do it. But I
Yeah.
think you am I right in thinking that you make your way back in somehow anyway? That's the very beginning of the next segment, right?
I thought I read it
Or
as you died.
you definitely die.
You
But
die and I assumed you play as another
oh
uh
yeah. Well,
model.
but there's the thing that you come back and your arm is missing and you like take the arm from the other model and like just like
Hmm,
take it off and put it on yours,
that's true,
right? And it's
yeah.
just like that I that's like one of the best images in any game I've played in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just good and freaky. You know, that interchangeability. And also like it's kind of cool that like I mean, you know, I mean this is a game about a bunch of like thin girls, I guess. But it's also the body horror in it, unlike some stuff in Silent Hill, is not really focused on like, oh, here's the non-normative body. It's like
Yeah.
focused on what if you're not who you are, right? What if you know, what if you could become this thing that you can't understand, or what if you know, what
Yeah.
if you're just the memory of someone else, right? Stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think that you know, it's a good way of like conjuring all that stuff and not bringing in all this like huge baggage that sometimes body horror can carry with it,
For
right?
sure. Yeah. You get a new fit. That was cool.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's also something that's cool about it is the way there's like a continuance, kind of.
Hmm.
Um, there's like continuity, even though it doesn't make sense, right? That it's like you go
Yeah.
and get the armor, and that stays with you the whole rest of the game, and so it's like, oh well, that happened, right? But then you go to the same places, and like
Yeah.
just it just doesn't make sense, right? I think
Yeah,
the
and
like
everything is way more fucked up.
yeah
Just like everything's like either decomposed or there's like
yeah
flesh. Um,
yeah
which makes me think like a certain amount of time has passed between like that first section and the
Right,
second.
yes, yeah. But that's the thing is it's like linear time, but also
Yeah.
that doesn't quite work. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why is it like the third time you go back to the ship, that's when the that's when Ariana's there and the ending can play. It's
Yeah.
like that stuff is I think is cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a subtle horror thing.
Hmm.
Um Oh, also I just wanted to say I thought it was really cool because I talked a little bit before about how it's like a map game.
Yeah.
Um and then in the third segment, when like nowhere, when you kind of go into like Silent Hill hell and there's rusted stuff and
Yeah.
whatnot, and you do the Silent Hill 2 thing of jumping into multiple holes over and over again and things like that.
Yep.
Um, that's like there's no map anymore, and also like it'll do things like you'll enter a door on one side, you know, and then exit from a different side
Yeah.
in the next room and things like that. Like the way the game like the first two bits of the game are like really strict, really regimented and sort of distant, and then when you move into the third area it like starts messing with all the like expectations that you have based on how the game's worked so far, right? And like you don't have access to a map, and so you have to like remember where things are, and like it just is such a cool and iterative thing, and it's obviously really thematic too. It's really elegant,
Hmm.
cool stuff.
Yeah.
um yeah. Was there something else that you wanted to? I hope I didn't interrupt you there, and I'm sorry if I did.
No.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything much to say about either of those things. It's called Nowhere, like it is in Silent Hill 1.
yeah. hmm Um.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if I have anything to add.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's about it for me too. I guess I kind of like there's some interesting the way that so what is the like nation that y'all that or you're from? Because there's the empire that's sort of the like the Kaiserreich, and that's whatever enemy is being fought that is like super invisible and never shown, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then because there's some sort of like vaguely like lefty things. Like, there's a lot of the revolution and like fighting for the people and
Hmm.
stuff. And then also some of the iconography, like the German flag that shows up, is like pretty similar to the DDR flag. That I mean,
Hmm.
well, GDR rather in English, German Democratic Republic, which is East Germany. Um, and so yeah, I don't know. There's some stuff happening there, but there's almost like that stuff. There is kind of like I don't know. Maybe you could read it as communist critique, I guess, but it does feel like there's a way in which like the states and systems that like have all these people are like so distant from like what this reality is. Like that's
Yeah.
like something that happened to people like 10 generations or like productions of people ago that are now rippling out in all these ways that are like unanticipated and like sort of unable to be comprehended, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I would be interested to see if like someone has a more kind of thorough take on that,
Hmm.
and on the specific deployment of some of the imagery and like and the language stuff too. But because there's also this kind of like there's certain books are banned and there's sort of association with like the old world or like the art and the classical music that shows up is kind of it's European
Hmm.
stuff, right? And a lot of it's like turn of the century kind of things, right? But um, oh, I didn't. Wow. Sorry, I'm reading on the Isle of the Dead, which is the painting that shows up a bunch of times in it, um,
Hmm.
which apparently has 5 versions. So again, and then one
Yep.
of them was destroyed in World War II, um,
Interesting.
in Berlin. So yeah, so that like replication thing again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if again, I don't have like a take on like what the game's politics are, and I think the game is also kind of intentionally like evasive about.
Yeah.
It's not the center of the, or like that. I mean, or at least that literal kind of like, is this game communist? Is not one of the game's prior foremost
No.
considerations, right?
It's
But
not
yeah,
also not a blooper team game where it's like communism. There's a communism bad level,
yes, yes,
like
yeah.
there
It's
is
not
in the
really like
medium.
that. Yeah. Well, because also so like the things that happen, like the sort of the flesh illness that gets all the replicas, doesn't really seem. There's not really like a in Minds of Moria thing like we dug too greedy and too deep, right? Kind of like
No, it is
you know.
very presented as like an otherworldly occurrence or something.
Yeah. And there's also something about it that's like not. I mean, I think it's actually kind of similar to this really great itch horror game that I played a little while ago called Flesh, Blood, and Concrete,
Oh.
um, where like in that there's sort of like flesh creatures and stuff, but there's sort of well, I mean, it's outright stated eventually, but there's sort of an implication or like an idea that it's like, oh, but they're not bad. They just like want to eat you, but like in a
Oh.
nice way. you know and there's more, it's a little more violent here, but there is sort of a similar thing, I think, where it's like, what if we just became one flesh? Like maybe that would be chill. you know like you just get to be like hang out and be one flesh, and that might be cool, right?
Yeah.
So there's sort of a like, even though it wrought all this destruction and like stuff, it's not really malevolent in the way that like Dead Space, where it like really explicitly is, where it's like this is a bad thing, this is like a bio weapon, right? um
Hmm.
and it's like this is just like a natural process that is like occurring, and that's also again the way that it ties into like aging and yada yada yada.
Hmm.
All right, sorry I riffed hard on you there. If you got any other
No,
thoughts
I
you want
got
to
nothing else.
tweak.
This is one of those games where it's like, yeah, good game. Anyway.
It's pretty classic.
It's
It's pretty cool.
pretty cool.
Pretty cool. But yeah, I was impressed. I'm glad I got around to this. I think this, I don't know, it's fucking hard with a year that Pentiment came out.
Uh-huh.
That's the goat game for me. So,
Yeah.
but Signalis would definitely break top 10 if not top 5 games from last year.
It's no Norco.
Norco's pretty damn
Norco's pretty
good.
fucking good.
Actually, this was the thing, is last year was secretly a pretty cool year.
Hmm.
Despite whatever else was happening. But like Stephanie, Pentiment, Signalis, Norco. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Pretty cool, pretty classic. All right, shall we read some emails then?
Let's do some emails. I'll read this one from Taryn.
Okay.
Been listening to the safe room since the start. Glad to finally have played the game alongside the pod. My question is, what's up with the meat? The game definitely leads into the cosmic horror imagery at first. That something was found beyond the stars or underneath the earth that was bringing an apocalypse via the replicants. However, the game then pulls back later to reveal it's a more personal story between Alistair and Ariane, which I much preferred, but I can't square the meat in my head. The rest of the imagery in the game, I can get a good sense of that framing, but the meat feels so firmly rooted in cosmic horror that I'm not sure how to take it. The closest thing I can think of is the cancer Ariane has been living with, but it feels too alive, too much like its own organism to really fit. What do y'all think? Happy Valentine's Day in the cold, dead reaches of space.
Um,
Um, the meat just felt like an extension of both the kind of infection that spreads, but also like um, a reminder that these personalities came from people and
Yeah.
like real, like
Hmm.
tangible things that are no longer in existence.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's also. I mean, I was because we were talking about the political thing, but I think one of the things that is happening in the game is like replicas are not considered to be people, and they are not used as people. And
mhm.
there's this like there you find all this file stuff in the game where it's like, here's how you can like prevent them from acting up. You just have to like
Yeah,
give them some treats, you know,
yeah,
and like this specific kind of treat will assist, will prevent. And like fetish objects is what it's called, and that's also sort
yeah.
of interesting because that's a very Marxy word,
Mhm.
right? And that has kind of some cachet there. Um, but and there's also the fact that like the ship, the resources, if you don't find a habitable planet, you're just supposed to die in space, right?
Yeah,
So there's like the real way that like these people are expendable in like the
yeah,
most literal way possible, and
yeah,
the meat is sometimes like a literal configuration of that like expendability and like the way that those characters like these because the replicas are very explicitly people, right? Like it's
yeah,
not there's not any question about whether like there's questions about what it means to be like a copy of a copy, to be someone who is a memory, but there's not any question about like but that is still a person though. There's not like it's not a person, right?
yeah.
And so I feel like yeah, that stuff kind of plays into that. I didn't think about the cancer angle. I think maybe the imagery is playing with that a little, but that is like that would feel too literal, I think, for a game that is generally pretty good about not being like super on the nose with its theming. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
but you also fall down an elevator and there's a million
Oh yeah,
of
yeah.
you in
No, it's
there.
not the most subtle game ever made by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got some layers, It's got
Yeah.
stuff going on.
When you open that cryo chamber and it's just like fucking blood and flesh, good
Yeah.
shit. That's that good shit.
Oh yeah. God. How much did you die in this game, by the way? Separate question, but
A couple times.
yeah, I think it
Definitely
was
the
just two
most
for me
during the
too.
final boss.
Yeah, the final boss is kind of tough,
Yeah,
but I did get it. Did you play on easy or
I
there's not
did.
really a difficulty setting, but there's like well there is actually. Never mind. There's like combat
I
difficulty.
turned down the combat difficulty a little bit.
Yeah, I just played on normal
Yeah.
as I do normally. I'd be curious because I actually felt like it was so well tuned for that. I felt
Yeah.
very like at the end of the game, I guess I did horde stuff, but it's also like you can't. It's like Resident Evil. You at the end of Resident Evil 1, it's like you have enough inventory space, and
Hmm.
you can just kind of be a walking army. And Signalis is so restrained with your inventory
Yep.
that it's like even when I have a bunch of shit and like a bunch of ammunition, I can only use so much of it, and I'm going to run out.
Yeah.
And that stuff is pretty.
Especially when you have to use the flashlight towards the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God, it's pain, but it's great. Like that stuff is really good. The way
Hmm.
that the game constantly puts you into situations with your inventory that feel uncomfortable is like really smart. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very much like the in lore uh, implication that they can only carry 6 objects.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. I hope that clears or serves as an interesting thing to think about, Taryn. I'm not acting as the authority of what Signalis is about, but
you know,
um, and thank you for the question.
yeah. No,
Um,
I definitely felt like it was very much of a piece of what the game was getting into towards the end,
yeah.
just
Well, and
in
again,
terms
there's sort
of
of
yeah,
just the oneness of the flesh. That's all kind of one
yeah,
big object, and that's also the like. I mean, kind of the memory ending is sort of that, where it's like you both just
yeah.
lie together, right?
Hmm.
And you just become flesh, you know. And maybe that would be chill, right? Anyway.
I like that I played this game. I like being in the video game.
All right, we also have a question from Jennifer. It says, hello, Rose and Grace. The developers have expressed their frustration with the way players refer to Signalis' ending as bad, good, true, etc., stating it was their intention to make each ending a meaningful conclusion. During your playtime, see more than one of the endings. We did address that, I think. If so, do you think they could have done something differently so fans wouldn't feel compelled to rank the outcome of each one?
No, gamers just need to learn how to read.
Yeah, I think that's gamer brain is such a powerful fucking thing. And because I even had this with the artifact or Lily ending. I've seen it referred to as either one.
Yeah.
And where it's like, oh, that's the ending that's like requires like this busy work to get.
Yeah,
And so that is
it's the Silent Hill 2 Resurrection ending, you
yes,
know?
it's the true ending. Yeah, or whatever, you know.
Which I guess me saying that is gamer brain, you
Yes,
know.
exactly. Yeah. No, I think that that's like I think part of it is like both the rhetoric of how we talk about these kinds of things and the language the games use themselves is really powerful and very difficult for any one game to overcome. I don't think Signalis does anything wrong in this department.
No.
I just think it is tough to. I think gamer brain comes for us all.
It is hard to convince an audience that like having having an ending that is somber is like intentional when
Yeah.
you're doing
Well, I think
multiples
like
of it.
it was actually like interesting. Like I was at one point last year. Don't worry about it. I was watching a bunch of behind the scenes Bioshock videos, and and apparently the like multiple endings in that was like a publisher mandated thing,
Mm.
and that Ken Levine did not want to do it, and I think that does like that game does have good and bad endings, you know, right? Like
Vaguely.
100%. Yeah.
Though
Well, I mean, you know,
two of them are the same, except
yes.
one she's a little more mad at you.
Yes.
Famously, journal updated.
Sad.
Listen to
Yes,
the journal
sad.
updated on that.
Yeah, sad rather than mad.
Yeah.
You know, disappointed, not upset. Um. But yeah, it's you know, and so I think that's also like there are literally games where it is like, yeah, the you know, saving the kids in BioShock is what you are supposed to do, TM, right? And it gives you the ending that is good, quote unquote, right? So it just happens. People carry that forward into other things they play that are where it's not necessarily relevant.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's too bad, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What can one man do against such reckless hate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for questions. If I'm not mistaken.
That's it. That's it for questions.
All right. Well, thank you for the questions. We love getting questions. And you can send us questions at questions@spookygame.club. You can email them to us. And we'll answer them just as we have here.
Tell us about the secret fifth good ending to Signalis.
Yeah, tell us about it. Yeah, there's gonna be like a whole like Aerith thing about this game in the future.
Oh God.
God, do you think there's gonna? Never mind. I can't. Sorry, I was just about to bring some evil into the world, and I refuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, people could just be obnoxious about lesbians dying in this game, to which I would say, grow up. If there such people are out there, and I'm not just making up a guy, you should grow up. That's my opinion.
No, I have on good authority that those people are out there.
Ah, no! I hate it when I make up a guy and it's real. It's the worst thing ever.
It's just this game references tragedies that happen to straight people, and you know, sometimes it's nice to have a tragedy that's about some girls, okay?
Yeah, like I just, you know, I feel like I mean, this is getting into like broader shit, but I do feel like not that, I don't know. I understand that people want to just watch a nice rom-com about gay people, and like that's cool. And I'm not mad about that,
Yes,
but I do think that it's like it is a reality that so many queer people literally died. And that there are a generation and continuing of queer artists who are trying to work through that like thing that actually happened. right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, it makes sense that some of these people are kind of preoccupied with death, like maybe grow, as a person and think about that, right? I don't think Signalis is about AIDS. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm just saying that it's like, I'm just saying that, these are things that are part of the landscape of being queer, like even now, right? And that should be like
that's what the
seriously
flesh
considered.
means.
Yeah, that's what the flesh is.
um
Well, except in well, never mind. Anyway, um,
Also, like, imagine playing. I'm gonna play indie horror hit Signalis and expect a good ending to this love story
yeah, I don't
that doesn't
know.
reveal itself until like 2/3 in.
Yeah, it's whatever.
You know,
People can be silly. It's fine. Um. Oh yeah, let's do plugs and whatnot.
let's do plugs.
Um.
You can find me on Twitter still somehow at bluestrose430. What about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Grace_machine. I do not post very much these days.
You know,
It was just not much before, and it's even less now. So,
you know. We are hosted on the Abnormal Mapping Podcast Network. You can find that at abnormalmapping.com. The podcast can be found at Podcast Safe Room on Twitter. And then our website is spookygame.club. We have a Discord there. You can come join us and talk about all the spooky games we get up to
mm-hmm,
playing and other
mm-hmm.
stuff. And then, like Grace mentioned earlier, our email is questions@spookygame.club. Email us about the current game club, any previous game clubs, and
Yeah,
we'll answer them.
mm-hmm. Or horror things generally, or what kind of sandwiches you like, or whatever you want to ask.
Yeah.
We're playing Dino Crisis 2 next time.
I'm so excited and curious.
Yeah, apparently this is like an action game, straight up.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you next time in the safe room.
That's right.
There's probably gonna be safe room still in that game.
I'm gonna play Theatrhythm now.
That's good. That's a good reveal. That's strong. Yeah, that's pretty sweet and pretty weird. That's pretty cool. That's like pretty classic. Pretty cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to see that.